No.
Nope.
Y'all, just
It's
stop.
finally here. Drum roll. Welcome to DBL. I'm Sam here with Al, Erica, and Tori, and we're going to do things a little today. Okay, a little different. We're going to look back at some of the stories that got us talking, like the time Tori, Al, and Lindsay got into it about what they thought billionaires like Jeff Bezos should or should not be doing with their money. Take a look.
I just think all these billionaires spending all this money to go somewhere like a road to space, to get to space, feels a little, and maybe you can call me out on this, escapism from what's actually going on Earth. Meaning, if I had that much money that I could literally turn around climate change in my country or help childhood hunger, I would feel a moral compass and a responsibility towards that rather than a cowboy hat in space. I feel strongly that space is important, but I also feel our Earth is burning up and we aren't stopping it, so we're just going to go to space and that's the escape. That's what I feel all these billionaires are doing.
You know, it's just interesting because the two things that you're bringing up, he has a $10 billion fund.
Commitment fund
That he already he already put hundreds of millions towards it.
Right.
And then he has a $100 million to Feeding America fund.
His ex-wife just donated $2.7 billion.
I know, but so you're comparing like how much you think he should spend on what thing, but this man is very charitable.
He's not charitable.
That is charitable. $100 million and $7 billion commitment.
No, billions it's charitable for Jeff Bezos. Like we're talking millions is nothing. I'm being honest. I don't think that's a lot of money.
But who are you to say how much somebody should give away when they are the one that's a billionaire?
It's not.
You're saying what you would give away. So if you were Jeff Bezos and you would go on and you would fix every road in America and then go to space. Like this man has been interested in space since he was younger.
Awesome.
He actually went up there on the anniversary of Neil Armstrong going up there. So it's like a big deal to him. And space actually helps us figure out the future and where we're going.
For 4 minutes.
What if
Meanwhile, I could end childhood hunger with a check. So
he gave a $100 million check. What do you want?
I'm talking about using your money responsibly instead of a tourism that only billionaires can afford in the future.
But maybe
only millionaires, only well-off people could afford to take the first flights. Flights weren't made for everybody. Now everybody can connect with their family across the country, across the world.
Southwest.
You know, exactly. Southwest, Frontier. Like, so what do you mean? It's going to change over time, but he's starting this trend just like the other billionaires that are helping start this trend.
Both can be true, right? I like space exploration. I like what he's doing. Do I wish he spent more in taxes? Do I wish he spent more like his ex-wife who's spending billions on historical black colleges? Yes, I do. I think it looks weak, and it's not my moral
That's an erroneous argument, Tori. Everybody writes off a dinner that they didn't actually talk about business
on.
on.
Did I write
so don't tell what Amazon should do in taxes and what you would do.
You feel the same way?
Yeah, and I've strongly said I like space. I like Star Trek. I like space exploration. No, because people are like, don't get mad about space. I'm not mad about space. I'm mad about the idea of where one puts their money. Now, I also know don't go into people's wallets, but if you want my opinion, if I were that person, I think this space exploration thing is fun, but I think there's way more serious problems down here on Earth.
I was 50-50. Where Lindsay turned it for me was when she said flights were originally very expensive, and then they eventually became affordable to everybody. So maybe that would be where we would go with space travel. So.
I just don't think it's a necessity or a luxury we need right now when really our Earth is burning. I mean, that just...
I think we should end the show right there. Just our Earth is burning. Enjoy your holiday. All right. Remember the story about Nicole Kidman? Who said her husband, Keith Urban, was totally fine with her on-screen sex scenes? My boy Jeff was not buying it. Check it out.
He definitely cares.
You do think so?
Yes, for sure. That's a good relationship. You give the answer that you think is right. Oh, of course, Jordan doesn't care what I do. They care. If you get home, you care. I don't want to watch a movie with my wife with Jordan and be like, hey, you didn't see this yet? Okay, because there's some intimate scene she does, and I don't want to be laying there with my partner while they're getting it on.
But don't you
and
really?
Moaning.
You don't have any part of the craft that she disappears into that role.
Yeah,
that's her
right.
job.
Get real.
That's my main concern. I don't want her to disappear into the role.
Nominee. She gets so deeply into it. Sex is part of the role. Big Little Lies, that was an important part of her character, that violence with the sex. If they didn't have that, you don't have that kind of a character.
saying you don't have to have it.
And
Like
who are you
she
screaming at?
Sorry. You get very passionate.
I'm so sorry.
No one's saying that she shouldn't be doing her craft, and she does it very well. And clearly they
Get
have.
real with that artist crap.
But I agree with Jeff that there has to be. I'm not saying that they don't have this like agreement, like okay, you do you, that's fine, but. Internally, something's got to irk him. It would irk me.
I mean, we're talking about logic versus emotion. It's just like, let's take sex out of it. Let's just say that Jordan was a UFC fighter. I don't think you'd want to see that either. You would support her all the way and through training. I don't want to see somebody knee my girl in the face. You know, I don't want to see.
Sexual or not.
Sexual, yeah, exactly. Depends, again, we're open to everything here. But it's like when you love somebody and you have a connection with somebody, you might not want to see them in a very, fighting is as intimate
you're
as
both
well.
Really mature, and she feels comfortable what he does on tour. He feels comfortable with what she does.
Maybe.
And remember, she was married to Tom Cruise and had a very controlling marriage. I don't think she'd feel comfortable with someone who's a bit controlling. She broke free from that. And I think she didn't seem to me to be masking something.
And that's your house, right? That's cool in your house. In my
I didn't say it was cool in my house. I was in there.
I'm just saying, like we're talking about Nick Cannon, what's cool in his house might not be cool in my house. I'm about monogamy. I'm all for artistry, and if my wife wants to do something like that, not every. I feel like every show I see a scene with Nicole Kidman having sex.
Does every movie have to have so much sex in TV series?
If you just close the door and you walk in there, you know what happens.
Are you right? What are you, 81?
You guys sound
You
super
sound like a
old.
nun right now.
Okay,
Sex sells.
I'm not going to lay in my bed and listen to my wife pant
weird.
over some other guy.
And it's weird when your kids are in the next room.
But that's all about.
Move their room over down the hallway.
Oh, yeah, let me go
How
buy a
loud is your
bigger
television? No, Sam.
Hey, Al, my kids are
adults are
stone's
allowed
throw
to
away.
view sexual things when you're an adult. You don't make it around the kids.
I don't mind having okay, I'm gonna watch a very sexy
Sex life.
very sexy
sex
movie.
life.
We got it.
But when I'm just casually watching a TV show, I feel like every other scene sometimes is a raunchy sex scene.
It gets eyeballs. That's why. What? I try to say one thing at
You
the
sound
end.
like a director from the 70s. All right, it sells.
In a picture room.
Here's your ashtray.
Oh, we didn't get to hear Erica's point of view. Where did you lie in this?
I don't see it being a problem. Clearly, it's what works for them. I love when people are like, this is how we do it. I don't care what you think. Because when somebody's putting their lives out like that, that's what they're telling you.
Would it bother you if Anthony was a famous actor and then had a really raunchy sex scene?
If I married a famous actor, I would anticipate that there is going to be a time
Thank you.
where there may be a scene
But
in
would
a
it
movie.
bother you? Let's say if you're like, of course, go do you. But while you're watching,
I'm going to say, I'm going to say very strongly, it would not bother me.
Mm-hmm.
What bothers me is when you get together with somebody and then they expect you to change everything about yourself, including your career, in order to accommodate that relationship. That's not a relationship, in my opinion.
That is a wise statement.
She's like an owl.
I don't fall into
She's like an
that.
owl.
That's a very wise. Coming up on DBL, a woman proves you're never too old to start a new hobby. We'll introduce you to this skateboarding queen who is showing the kids how it's done. And inside the seedy world of black market babies, one survivor shares her own experience of being sold at birth. Next.
Listen, this past couple of years has been so crazy. Let's express gratitude for this year and all of the amazing gifts that are coming in 2022.
This year, let's try and put aside all of our differences and just be together and really be present in the moment.
From the Showman's Happy Holidays!
From me and my family, we truly want to thank you over the years how much support you've given me and our whole team.
I know the holiday season can be difficult for some, and I just want to let you all know that you're not alone, and I'm wishing you a holiday season full of love and light.
From all of us here at Daily Blast Live,
We want to wish you
Happy holidays
Happy holidays!
and a healthy new year.
and my baby said happy holidays.
There's nothing like having a real tree in your home, but it's a bummer when all of those needles end up on your carpet. In fact, there's a whole Christmas tree genetics program dedicated to solving this problem. Researchers say they've identified which genes help trees hold on to their needles, and now they're working on super seeds that could reach growers by 2028. The goal is to have less than 1% of a tree's needles fall off through the Christmas season. And it's not just the needles. Researchers are also working on trees that have a stronger aroma, need less watering, and could even be resistant to climate change, creating fantastic firs that even Charlie Brown would be jealous of.
is the most wonderful time of the year. DBL is back December 27th with all new episodes every day live.
That was good.
Welcome back to DBL. Jane Blasio spent decades researching her own adoption. But before she could find her story, she had to uncover her birth doctor's deep, dark secret, black market adoptions involving hundreds of babies. I spoke with Jane about her remarkable journey to the truth. Jane, welcome to DBL. So you have spent decades investigating your adoption, but you first knew your family's story was different at the age of 6. What happened and how did your adoptive parents answer your questions?
Well, my sister and I, she was also from the Higgs Clinic, had heard some kids on the playground calling us black market. So when you're 6 years old, what do you know about black market? Nothing. And actually, when you're 26, you shouldn't know anything about black market. But that's how we first learned about it. And I can remember my parents had called me in from the yard I was playing. And I went into the living room and sat down, and Michelle was there, and she was crying. And they said, you know, the kids on the playground said black market. We just want you to know that you were adopted, and there's nothing wrong with that. And basically that was it. And a 6-year-old wants to run and get away from any drama. I did anyway. And so I'm like, okay, cool, I'm out. And I went out and left at that point.
Let's start with the investigation that eventually led you to Georgia, where you found out about Dr. Hicks and his clinic. What specifically did you discover?
So what happened was when I turned 18, I went to search for my birth family. And so I started making trips down to Georgia. There were women from the town and from different states would come to his clinic for either an abortion or the adoption. Sometimes he talked a woman into changing from an abortion into an adoption. Some of the mothers were told that their babies had died, that they had come there to have a baby at his clinic, and that he would tell them that it died and then he would sell it.
Wow.
Yeah, so there were just so many different scenarios on what he did. But we know that he did anything that he could to get his hands on a baby to be able to sell it. So
the abuse of power, the trauma,
yeah.
Dr. Hicks was never charged for these black market adoptions. He did lose his license for performing abortions, which at the time were illegal. But it's safe to say that people in his small town knew about the adoptions, but they never saw him as a villain. So help us all wrap our heads around that.
This was a town doctor. This was a man that when you had the flu, he came to your house and he helped you. When you had a baby and, you know, your husband was there to protect you and to be there with you and needed him to come to your home, he was there for that. And if you couldn't pay him, he would take eggs, you know, he would take vegetables, he would barter if he knew you couldn't afford it. So this was a man that he had some light to him.
Right.
Whether or not that worked out for everybody, it worked out for him. So you had half of the town that thought that he was he was angelic. But then you had the other half of the town that knew what he was doing with kind of all his shady stuff. And they knew better. So there wasn't a time when I spoke to anyone that there was any middle ground. It was either he was horrible or he was wonderful.
Wow.
So it was very intriguing and confusing when it came to investigating and trying to find the information that I needed.
And when those lies started to unravel, how did you feel, and were you angry at your adoptive parents?
No one likes to be lied to.
Right.
I don't care for what reason, you know, unless it's a surprise birthday party. I think any other lie just is not good. No one likes it. And I can remember growing up and at times being frustrated, but these are my parents. How could I not love them? How could I be angry? But there's this burning anger inside, and it fuels searching. But as the information started coming to me as I got older, then I found forgiveness for them.
Wow.
But yeah, I was angry.
Wow, that's.
Yeah. I think it's normal.
Yeah, of course it is. And that just speaks to your character to find forgiveness. I mean, unbelievable. And, you know, speaking of which, you know, Dr. Hicks died in 1972. So you were never able to address him like you did your parents, right? You never able to confront him. If you could have, what would you have said?
You know, if he and I were here together right now, we would be sitting down, probably drinking a beer. And I would be asking him the hard questions, because I'd have no problem asking him the hard questions. And I think that he would be truthful with me, because what I know of his character and what he's done over the years, I don't think that he thought for a minute that he did anything wrong or would have been caught doing it. So I think that he would be pretty straight with me, and I would be getting some of the answers that I had been seeking for all those decades.
You would deserve to get those answers, as well as so many of those other, you know, adopted children. You've learned about Dr. Hicks over the years. What was the biggest question that still haunts you today?
How many babies didn't get out of the clinic?
Wow.
How many?
Elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
Oh, he was known for his abortions.
Right.
He was also known for late term. You know, there were a lot of us in the group that were preemies. So, you know, was he really pushing the envelope? Was he pushing that risk factor of, well, I need to have a baby to sell, so she's 7 months along, is it going to be viable? Let's see if we can induce.
Wow.
And then if the baby's viable, I can sell it. So it's in his mind, was he justifying a late-term abortion so that he could sell the baby? And so for me, in my heart, it's twofold. How many babies didn't get out? And then what happened to those mothers?
Right. And when it comes to your story, have all your questions been answered? What more do you feel like you need to learn?
So I'm smiling because I'd say 99% of my questions have been answered. And that's all detailed in the book. But I think what's most important, and I've learned this over the years, is that I've got the answers, but the most important thing was the journey.
You found your birth parents. Is that right, Jane?
Well, I found my birth story. It's in the book in detail.
To our DBL Nation right now, and I hope it was cathartic for you writing about it, but to our DBL Nation, I know that you probably have unanswered questions like I do. To learn more about Jane's remarkable story, get her book, Taken at Birth, Stolen Babies, Hidden Lies, and My Journey to Finding Home. Jane, thank you so much for joining us and just being so transparent.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Last month, Jacob Chansley, better known as the QAnon shaman, was sentenced to 41 months in prison for his role in the January 6th insurrection. Chansley pleaded guilty to a felony obstruction charge. Soon after, Verify viewer Kathy asked, can some people convicted of felonies from the January 6th insurrection still vote? So Kathy, let's verify. Our sources are the National Conference of State Legislatures, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Campaign Legal Center. While the right to vote is overseen by both federal and state governments, only states have rules restricting felons from the ballot box. The ACLU estimates nearly 6 million Americans have lost their right to vote because of a criminal conviction. A lot of it comes down to where the person lives. The NCLS found 48 states disenfranchise felons while in prison. 37 automatically restore their right to vote once felons are released or their sentences are completed. 11 others require additional action to restore voting rights. However, Maine, Vermont, Puerto Rico, and D.C. allow everyone to vote, including inmates. So, it's true. Some people convicted of felonies from the January 6th insurrection can still vote if they live in a state that allows them to do so, and most others will eventually be allowed to vote again. The CLC also notes most states only restrict the voting rights of people convicted of felonies. Roughly 3/4 of people who were convicted in the January 6th insurrection pleaded guilty to misdemeanors. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis. To receive daily fast facts to your phone, text Verify to 202-410-8808. And to sign up for our newsletter, visit verifythis.com/email.
Welcome back to DBL. Skateboarding is a sport that's put some of its greatest competitors in the hospital. That's true, but that did not stop a 46-year-old mom of two from taking it up and hitting the skate park. Here is a look at her incredible story.
It's a world Orby Roy knows little about.
When I met my husband and he told me he was a skateboarder, I still had no understanding that an adult grown man was skateboarding.
Her interest in the sport grows as she spends more time at the skate park.
So I would sit and watch him skateboard with his friends. I felt a little bit of envy. It was something that I felt would have been a really cool sport for me, and I regretted that I hadn't started.
Blaming her age, she sidelines herself.
When I was in my 30s, I honestly just felt it was way too late to be a grown woman getting on a skateboard.
But then, as her kids get older, it becomes a family affair.
I'm not going to be the mom that stands there at the edge watching my whole family have fun. And it was for that reason entirely that I said, oh, no, I'm getting on this board and I'm going to crush it.
At age 43, she throws her hesitations to the wind and officially drops in.
And I really had no idea what I was doing. And I dropped in from a 2-foot ramp and I immediately fell on my bum. And I was so happy. I was addicted right away. I felt alive. It was so liberating. I really was like, this is amazing.
She spends 3 years honing her skills. Then in January of this year, with hopes of sharing her joy with others, she takes on a new name and persona, Auntie Skates.
Hello everybody, it's Auntie. I'm out in the cold weather in Canada to do a rock to fakie.
I took an accent I had created from improv, and it was the accent I was kind of using to yell at my kids with. It's a family accent that I created based on my cousins and my mother, and it's a really fun, loving accent.
Her following grows overnight.
It was a very impulsive thing for me to do, but it goes back to the whole thing about me bringing all the things that I love into this character and feeling connected to this thing that I'm doing.
Skateboarding has even upped her parenting game.
If I fall, they see me get back up. They have no idea what it means to give up because they always see me get back up. The fact that they see me talk the talk and walk the walk is really important.
Auntie Skates plans to shred well into her 70s.
I'm really taking the slams, putting in the work, doing as much as I can to get myself to a certain level so that when I get into my 50s and 60s, I'm not going to take as many slams and I'll be able to just skate casually, and I'm going to do that for as long as I possibly can.
She hopes her message of fearlessness is one that others will follow.
You be kind to yourself and allow yourself to have fun. Do the thing that you've always wanted to do. Be that person that you always wanted to be. If I can be in a bowl in my 40s, skating in a sari, I promise you, you can do anything. And I've got your back. Doesn't matter how old or how young you are.
If you want to watch more Auntie Skates videos, be sure to follow her on TikTok or Instagram. We'll be right back.
That sound means it's time to verify. Are you hot-natured or cold-blooded? It's quite interesting how two people can be in the same environment for the same period of time, and one will be taking off layers while the other is reaching for a sweater and space heater.
It's that time of year again. It's cold, like really cold. But it's not as cold as it is where I'm from, which is New Jersey. I thought that the warmer winters would feel a little better. They don't. It's still freezing. My dad says when I moved from somewhere cold to somewhere warm, my blood thinned. Is that true?
To verify, I consulted the Mayo Clinic and heard from Dr. PJ Miller, assistant professor of hematology and oncology at Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist. They conclude the claim is false.
So this is actually what we'd refer to as an old wives' tale, meaning there is no significant medical evidence behind this question that actually happens. But even with saying that, that is something that a lot of people do experience temperature differently when moving from a northern climate to a southern climate. And a lot of that just has to do with the perception and getting used to a warmer climate or getting used to a colder climate.
That said, your blood pressure can change with climate. Mayo Clinic found blood pressure is generally higher in the winter and lower in the summer. Low temperatures cause blood vessels to narrow, so your blood needs more pressure to move through the thinner veins and arteries. That doesn't mean your blood thickness is changing, even though it's reasonable for you to think so.
I myself grew up in New England, and then I actually lived in the Mid-Atlantic for a while before living in a tropical climate for a couple years. And now I live in North Carolina. And I do remember the first time that I traveled from the tropical climate back to a New England winter and remembering how truly cold that winter was. But that, again, was all perception.
So in conclusion, we verified Tom's claim is false. No, your blood does not thin moving from a warmer climate to a colder one or vice versa. Maybe you're not properly dressed for it either. With your Verify, I'm Megan Malaris.
A decision on the Supreme Court's latest abortion case is not expected for months, but if the conservative majority agrees with Mississippi's law, it would almost immediately have a major impact on a huge part of the country. 21 states could almost immediately ban or curtail access to abortions if the Supreme Court chooses to overturn or weaken Roe v. Wade. 12 states have so-called trigger laws that go into effect if Roe v. Wade is overturned or weakened. Most would ban abortion outright, while some include limited exceptions. For instance, back in June, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a new law that would almost immediately outlaw abortions and threaten doctors who perform them with life in prison or a $100,000 fine. And it's not just trigger laws. Another 9 states will have pre-Roe abortion bans that could once again become enforceable if Roe v. Wade is struck down. The court isn't expected to release their final ruling until this summer.
Welcome back to DBL. We have some questions from our viewers. Tori, Jerry wants to know what's the most useless talent you have.
I have 2. One, I can go, I'm Bane. Okay. And the other one is this. Ready? It's with my tongue.
I love that. I used to have a friend named Kyla that did that, and I'd always tell her to do that. I loved it.
That's all I can do. Doesn't help anything.
I like it. DBL is new. We'll see you every day. That doesn't make sense. Bye.